to the Players' Championship. He's got a Sensei's Divining Top and a Counterbalance in play. Couple of lands, among them a Scalding Tarn, Jacob Baugh. You see a Deathrite Shaman, a Tree Nemesis, a Liliana of the Veil, and a couple of lands on his side. So this one's been going on for a little bit.
And there's going to be a lot of investment in Brian's matches over the course of the day. Of course, not just from Brian's side as well, but from Huey, Brad Nelson, and Chris Van Meter, all of whom could potentially get the Season 1 invite if Brian has a poor tournament.
It's also a good start right now, of course. 2 buys from being the #1 seed, and then did win his first round. Not sure where we're walking into this game. He looks like he's in a pretty tough spot at this moment. True Name, Deathrite, and Liliana probably ticking up. He does have, obviously, his combo out there in Sensei's Divine Top and Counterbalance, but it looks like he's got some real work to do with only 1 card left in hand, too.
Yeah, Liliana of the Veil, one of the better planeswalkers against control strategies, just really taxes the hand.
Kind of coming from a bunch of different angles here is Baugh. Going to spin that top, see what he finds. A Swords, another top, and a Mystery card. He'll consult the 1 card in his hand and then move accordingly here in just a moment.
And I think that Liliana is especially taxing on a deck like Brian's in compared to, say, Joe Lissette's Buildable Miracles, because Brian has a lot more moving parts. And so he needs all the components in his hand to assemble. You know, you see Enlightened Tutor alongside a couple targets. He's trying to mix and match more pieces.
Yep.
And in that world, getting your hand attack is so much worse.
And, you know, as you mentioned, Lisette's version, I guess traditional is the word I'll use here.
Classic, yeah, whatever.
You know, for Brian's version, we do deem it Blue, White, Red Miracles, but that red splash is for Blood Moon. He's got some enchantments, a small Enlightened Tutor package. He's got a Humility, a Thopter Foundry, a Sword of the Meek, all things that the 1 Enlightened Tutor can find. Now, of course, he does have Jason, some other things going on here, so Enlightened Tutor is obviously quite good in this deck, but as you mentioned, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Gonna spin that top one more time, will BBD, after drawing a card. Trying to figure out how he can work his way out of this situation. Liliana, of course, taking up True Name Nemesis. Can't kill that one, and then Deathrite. Well, Deathrite does what Deathrite does.
Yeah, Brian could really use a Supreme Verdict or Terminus style effect, then find an answer for Liliana. Again, if he can kind of contain what's in play right now, there's a very good chance that Divining Top and Counterbalance will let him take the day, but there's some work to be done with Jacob's permanence.
Baugh draws a card. He's got a Batter Skull in there. Not sure what the other card is right now. BBD has a Terminus in his hand. I believe it's his last card. We're going to start this turn by Liliana going up. And Brian going to sacrifice. Looks like this Flooded Strand.
Trying to get another spin of the top, potentially.
Yep. He was not happy with what he saw. So the multiple-time Invitational top 8 competitor will take 1 to clear his top. See if he can find something better to do.
And all these matches for Brian are also going to be amplified in terms of pressure even early on, because all he really needs to do is avoid catastrophe to get that Season 1 invite.
Yeah.
But that's definitely looming on his mind.
I was going to say, you put a lot of pressure on yourself thinking,
Yeah.
I just need a good tournament. That's it. But at the same time, I need Brad, Chris, and Huey not to have great tournaments, but those are 3 great players capable of having a great tournament.
Yeah. And so every loss that you get in this kind of position makes you think about, well, what happens if I lose again? And then what happens if I lose after that? So Brian's done so much work over the last 12 months building up the lead that he's built, and especially in the last 3 months, but his lead is not a lock by any stretch.
You see BBD taking a look at a Jason Enlightened Tutor, and it looks like a land on top of his deck. I believe it's a Flooded Strand, but he'll be reorganizing these shortly. And I think what he's going to do here, Patrick, is activate the top to draw a card to discard something that's not the Terminus.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going to happen. So top is going to tap to draw a card. It will. It looks like Brian's ready to discard now. Flooded Strand, get out of here. There goes Batter Skull on Baugh's side. Baugh looking at another copy of True Name Nemesis. Well, the first one, that's going to get in the red zone. Going to put Braun-Duin down to 13. Brian's going to draw that top. Again, we know he has Terminus in his hand.
And Jacob here kind of announcing by not casting this True Name Nemesis, I feel like I'm pretty comfortably ahead on board. I can use this Deathrite Shaman and this True Name Nemesis and this Liliana and tax you that way. It's not required for me to put that card into play and potentially play even further into something like Supreme Verdict or Terminus.
Brian draws a card with the top after casting it. It's a Jace, which obviously he knew was there, so he's going to draw 3. He's going to put 2 cards back. I wouldn't be surprised if we put the old Terminus first, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure Brian isn't exactly enthusiastic about casting this Jace here into the face of the True Name Nemesis. That's just going to take it out, but again, once he cleans up this board, he's got a lot of tools to work with, so it's just getting rid of what's in play and taking over the game from there.
It's time for the Mind Sculptor to put 2 back here in just a second. But Brian working himself out of some trouble here, because he's certainly in some with creatures and planeswalkers 2 different directions here from Baugh. No slouch in his own right. Has some open series top 8s here in the legacy portion.
Really hard to find slouches in the Invitational.
That's true. So 2 cards go back. Deathright's going to remove that Swords of Plowshares. BBD going to take 2, go down to 11. Baugh will draw a card for his turn. There goes Jace. Will Baugh extend further? Will he use Liliana? What's he want to do in his second main phase?
Yeah, it's really risky business, and it's so hard to play against Miracles decks, especially after they've done something like Brainstorm or Activate Jace, because you do not know what they might have set up.
Liliana's going to tick up. There goes Deathrite. BBD discards top. That's a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you don't want top, huh?
Well, it may mean that he's found a second top, because
Yeah.
the second one does very little work.
That's true. I feel like Brian is really starting to try to set him up here.
Jacob's been very disciplined in the way that he's approached this game.
I agree. Here's another copy of Sensei Top. So by discarding the first one, as you mentioned, it's a pretty loud declaration that you have another one.
Either the last card in his hand is insane, or he has another Divining Top.
Yep. And BBD just passes the turn back. Deathrite goes removing. BBD goes down to 9. Brainstorm, get out of the graveyard. Brian says, that's all I've got for this turn. Jacob. Not going to draw yet. BBD looks like he's going to spin a top. Again, we know that BBD's floating a Terminus up there. He's really trying to trap him right now.
Yeah.
And the mechanics with how you play Miracles is the big key, because if you quickly put something on the top, like if Brian were to look at these 3 cards and just immediately, oh, put Terminus to top, okay, I'm done. You know, Jacob will think about his turn a lot, but Brian is really, really, really taking his time with his Sensei Top activations.
Yeah, that's the other tough part about this deck when it comes to time constraints, is that there's also some amount of body language type of manipulation you need to be doing as well.
Yep. So there is the Sensei Top. It's going to draw a card. Terminus is going to take care of Deathrite and this True Name Nemesis. There goes a Flooded Strand. Baugh wants to add a little bit of mana. But what that meant to me, Patrick, is that he didn't want to remove something and put BBD down to 7 because he's got another spell to cast, which is obviously that True Name.
Yeah.
Baugh going to start by ticking up Liliana. There goes an Enlightened Tutor for Brian. There's True Name passing the turn back. There's Liliana 6, so BBD's got to do something, but he's got a top coming.
So again, all Brian trying to do right now is answer the board. The game gets very easy for him to win if he's able to manage that.
Takes a look at 3 cards. Quickly reorganizes. Passes the turn back. Draw a card. Terminus. Goodbye, True Name. Both players no cards in hand. Baugh draws his card. That's a Brainstorm. That's a top, countered via Brainstorm. Maybe a misstep there by Jacob. Now he's going to tick up Liliana past the turn back. Could have maybe ultimated.
I don't know. I think he wants to keep the Liliana in play because just casting a couple Stone Rains at Brian right now, which is what the Liliana ultimate amounts to, is not really that great. I know that Brainstorm looked fairly bad out of Jacob, but he was going to discard it to the plus anyway, almost certainly.
BBD draws a card. Top goes on top. This is a Detention Sphere.
Here we go.
Baugh draws a card.
And he can't cast his
Passes it
one
back.
casters.
Yep. Top off the top here for Brian. Mounting a furious comeback now. Going to spin that. Passes the turn back. Baugh draws. He passes back after playing a land to Brian. Brian knows what's coming off the top. It's a Stoneforge Mystic. This will give him a shuffle for top, too.
And you can see Brian sitting up in the seat, too. He can feel that he was on the ropes for a while here, and now he's coming all the way back.
This is a Brainstorm response with the attempt to make it so that Brian has to shuffle his top into his deck. Brian's going to start by activating top here first with Brainstorm on the stack, along with Counterbalance. So hit 1, 2, and 3. You see a Batterskull among the cards there.
And at this stage of things, I feel like the Divining Top is so valuable that Brian will not choose to lose the top if that's his only choice.
And Brian says, that's fine. Your Brainstorm's good.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. There's a him to Torak. I think, and the reason I think Brian said this is okay is because honestly, it's just like, the range of cards that you can draw really aren't that impressive right now.
Yeah, a lot of them get shut down by the counterbalance divining top anyway.
Yep.
And he's going to get another clean spin at it now that he's shuffling his deck as well. So, again, that's a tricky decision point, but I agree with Brian's play here. I think he's best served leaving the divining top in play.
And you see both players here taking a little look maybe at the clock. We're about 3 minutes under. Got to pick up the pace here. Draw not the best place to be in this Invitational.
But it doesn't take Brian too long to win the game from here.
Now, closing speed is good with that batter skull. Baugh going to play Flooded Strand. Pass the turn back. Brian going to quickly spin his top. Sees a Caracas among other cards. But it's actually time to put himself on a batter skull here in just a moment, I think. So he's comfortable. BBD draws his card. Going to play that Caracas.
I mean, Brian's got to be concerned with how, I understand he wants to be conscious of every little detail as he's going through his top activations here, but it's possible Jacob could find enough stuff to disrupt Brian to squeeze a draw out of the situation. So Brian's going to be really conscious of the clock here.
Brian going to activate the Stoneforge right now, so that nothing like even dealing click can kind of come into the equation here. So the Germ Token going to come into play on the batter skull. So he's got a 4/4. He's got the 1/2 Stoneforge Mystic, the top counterbalance lock, Caracas in play in case any nonsense kind of shows up. And Baugh again is playing off the top of his deck. He's at 17 life from that Flooded Strand activation. He draws a him to Torak, has a Ponder in his hand.
Yeah, none of these cards really offer any help. Of course, it is really casual for Brian to counter the Ponder if he's feeling so inclined. His hand's empty, so him offers very little help.
Here's a Ponder. Brian going to spin his top. Finds a Brainstorm.
And that's brutal for Jacob here. Now Jacob with just a him to Torak in hand.
Has to pass the turn back. Brian going to spin top one more time as we are under 2 minutes here. He's happy with what he's found. Probably going to float that one around. So he doesn't have to pick up his top. He'll take a draw. In for 4. Interesting. Does not swing with Stoneforge.
It appears that he has a second copy of Batter Skull in his sideboard, and he may have brought it in.
I think you're right. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, you. 2 BBDs out there. Gonna spin the top one more time. He doesn't rush now. He's got a pretty good clock out there.
Yeah.
Looks like he may have found a Jace with this top activation. Jacob Baugh is going to pick up those permanents. Braun-Duin does win this match 2-1. Blue-White-Red Miracles defeating Jacob Baugh in his Esper Deathplay deck in what was some very, very, very nice play on Brian's side.
Yeah, when we came into that game, it looked like he was up against the ropes, but counterbalance plus divining top against more slower, ponderous opponents can be really powerful as long as you have time to deploy all your spells. And once you found a Detention Sphere for the Liliana of the Veil, it seemed like the momentum really shifted there. Jacob drawing pretty slim in terms of relevant threats, cards that he can cast in the face of the counterbalance and divining top. And it didn't take very long for Brian to actually turn a neutral board into a win, which is another important element for counterbalance decks. You're racing against the clock as well.
Yeah. You saw Huey Jensen and Owen Turtenwald walk behind BBD there, maybe wondering if he lost, and he says, no.
Nope.
No, I didn't lose. This player championship invite's going to me, my man. Congratulations, BBD. 4-0 moving into the standard portion. Well, he will be playing, I believe, Black-White. I'm not positive. I think it's going to be Black-White. His choice is between Black-White and Esper, so we'll see what he chooses to play. And from